Hey, Clemson family, I've been wanting to say that we as a show have wanted to win the offseason, but it seems Dabo Swinney is doing that, applying best as a standard to his offseason with the hire of Garrett Riley as his offensive coordinator.
I'm Daniel Shirley, and Garrett Riley's already winning. He's 1-0 as he was at the basketball game on Saturday as Clemson knocked off Duke.
Exciting times at Little John, and we've got some listener feedback to share from the Riley episode as well. I'm Bill Zimmerman. We are glad you found us for episode 56 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. The easy way you can keep up on all the big news around Clemson sports and our analysis of it is to smash that subscribe button at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff or hit follow on your favorite podcast app. Well, let's dive further into the hire of Riley. I guess Swinney decided BYOG now means bring your own Garrett, right? Let's get into the credentials and why Riley has been such a hot commodity beyond one season's work at TCU. But I think I want to start off with the impact that I keep thinking about. And it's not just his X's and O's that will make the big difference, but I think it's that it sets an example through Dabo Swinney that someone can be liked and is tenured as Streeter, but you still have to clear a high bar of performance to earn the right to contribute, whether that's on the field as a player or coach, whether you're a staffer behind the scenes. If you're running the postage meter in the basement, you got to get things done right, physically and mentally. You know, we saw some of this during the year when Myles Murphy wasn't the starter for a couple of games last season. He's a great person by all accounts. He's got an eye on big things in football and big things after his playing days. That should have been a bit of an eye-opener. This ought to maybe even be a much bigger eye-opener to everyone in the Reeves Center.
I think so, and it feels a lot like the moves before where Dabo has made changes with the coaching staff. The Billy Napier dismissal and then hire Chad Morris, the Kevin Steele dismissal and then hire Brent Venables, where you tried something, okay, it's not working. We like those guys. They're part of our staff. They're part of the quote-unquote Clemson family. All those things can be true, but as Dabo said the other day in his statement, his job is to look at the entire health of the football program and not just kind of implying just keeping guys around because they're part of that family. Look, Brandon Streeter played at Clemson. He was a GA at Clemson. He's coached at Clemson for a long time. He's a Clemson guy. But that doesn't give you a lifetime contract, as Dabo says all the time when he's talking about recruiting. So you have to do your job. You have to continue to improve, and you can't let it get stale. And it had gotten stale. And I like the fact, I mean, you don't want anybody to get fired, right? We're not advocating for people to get fired. We're not cheering that Brandon Streeter got fired. There are people's families involved with all this. But you do like the fact that Dabo Swinney made the tough call when a lot of people were saying, you know, probably myself included, will he make that kind of decision? Or has the program kind of gotten stale a little bit and gotten satisfied with what it was doing? And Dabo showed on Thursday that that's not the case.
A lot of outside voices, I don't want to say vindicated, but maybe more spot on than I would have realized, admittedly. I felt like a lot of what was going on was bad execution, particularly up front. But this says to me that the guy closest to the situation and the guy who's done more for Clemson football than any other head coach in history, and that comes from a big Danny Ford fan, as I'm saying that, saw the situation and knew a change needed to be made. And we know that he felt a strong friendship, kinship with Brandon Streeter, but he felt like this move had to be made. Let's get into what some people said in the comments on our quick episode that we did Thursday as the news was breaking. Conquering Barbell said, "Let's go. I'm ready to see what this offense will look like under Riley." Tiger1234 said, "Thank God Dabo made a move." Hit Wonder 101 said, "OMG, Streeter will be fine, but this needed to happen." Raj H said, "This is positive. Talking heads will pat Dabo on the back for doing something." Of course, I couldn't help replying, they always try to find a way to twist anything against Dabo Swinney. There were some more comments there. Be sure to check those out and be sure to let us know in this episode what you're thinking about the hire of Garrett Riley a few days after it's had some time to set in. We also did a poll on Twitter. Of course, that's not a scientific survey, but 90% plus of voters in that poll said they felt Streeter needed to go.
And look, and it's nothing personal against Brandon, right? It just felt like a change had to be made. And I think even if they would have said, okay, we're going to change the offense, but the coaches are going to stay, maybe some people would have been appeased by that. Maybe not, but based off that poll, the results of that poll. But something has to change with this offense. Has to. And you saw what the offense was last year. It got a little better this year, but as you've pointed out, it really regressed the second half of the season and looked bad against South Carolina, looked bad against Tennessee at times, and look, piled up a bunch of yards. I'll give you that, but it couldn't get the ball in the end zone when it needed to. And that to me is a big part of this. And some things need to change. And Bill, how many times did we hear after games this season, the South Carolina game in particular, the Notre Dame game, the Tennessee game, how many times did we hear from Brandon and some of the other offensive coaches, we bailed on the run too early. We've got to get the ball to Will Shipley more. We've got to get Phil Maffa more involved. Well, then do it, right? I mean, you can say that all you want to, but then if you don't do it, what good does it do to say that? So I wonder how much that stuff plays into this change. And the thing we've seen from Garrett Riley, and I've been reading a lot about him the last couple of days, is that his goal is to get the ball to his best players against your worst players on defense and to take advantage of those mismatches. And Clemson has some mismatches on its offense. You just have to get them the ball to take advantage of it.
I think one key interaction that's going to need to be really seamless behind the scenes is Garrett Riley and Thomas Austin, and how Riley can have faith in Austin and in the blockers up front to get things done. I've said before, you've got 5 of your 11 offensive positions as offensive linemen. I think he took steps forward with that group this year. More depth sure needed to be developed. Look, you have to trust those guys to call run plays, I guess. Or if you're calling RPOs, you've got to make sure your quarterbacks are disciplined enough to make sure that you're running the ball with some balance as well. Maybe this is a sign that it's Streeter's fault that the Clemson wasn't running the ball enough, especially during those last 2 losses of the season. If that's the case, then it's deserved that he's got to go. I mean, the Palmetto Bowl loss really should have been that lesson, and clearly that experience didn't resonate with the way the game plan was set up in the Orange Bowl. I think when you look at Garrett Riley, and we touched on this a little bit in the short, quick episode that we did as the news was breaking Thursday, Riley is willing to run the ball. People are saying, hey, he's an air raid guy, get ready to go. I've seen that mentioned here and there. But honestly, last year, TCU was 27th overall in total offense, according to the NCAA. They were 39th in passing. They were 31st in rushing offense, ranking higher. Sports Reference had TCU in 12th in yards per play at 6.7 yards per play. I don't think you do that without balance. I think, through the years, my father, when he was alive, would always say, why do they keep running the ball at the middle? Well, you have to do a little bit of everything in order to make sure your skill position guys are free to make the big plays. That's going to be part of taking advantage of matchups. And we've seen, obviously, Riley's offense was not perfect. It didn't do well against Georgia. I think everybody struggled a little bit. There was a really interesting column from Mac Engel out in Texas talking about maybe the stage was just too big. Some of the players addressed that. But throughout his 3 years as offensive coordinator under Sonny Dykes, 1 at TCU and 2 at SMU, his offenses have ranked really, really well.
Yeah, I get the air raid stuff. I do. And that's fine. He played for Mike Leach, so he has direct ties to that offense. But even in that offense, to have success, you have to run the ball. And I don't think this is going to be a thing where Cade Klubnik's going to be throwing the ball 50 times a game like he did in the Orange Bowl, which he should not have been doing. You're going to see this offense run the ball, take advantage of the 2 best players on offense, or the 2 best weapons anyway, in Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. So I don't think there's any doubt that Garrett and Thomas Austin are going to get together and work to get this thing straightened out. Kyle Richardson's going to be a big part of that as well. Remember, he was an air raid kind of a guy as well, coming up through the high school ranks. So those 3 really have to be on the same page and with the same game plan going forward. And that's the one thing I kind of felt like, Bill, there were times this offense didn't feel like everybody was kind of headed in the same direction. It just didn't feel that way, that the game plan, I mean, how many times did we say, during games this season, what in the world is the game plan for this offense? What was the game plan in the second half against South Carolina, where all of a sudden Shipley and Moffitt disappear with their carries? What was the game plan against Notre Dame? I don't know what that game plan was. And then Tennessee as well. So, and there were other games where you look at it and say, what exactly were they trying to accomplish? So I would hope that this is a reset for all of that. I would hope there's some fresh schemes and some fresh patterns for the receivers. I pray that the tight ends are involved because it feels like the tight ends need to be more involved. And then I'll tell you this, my son Matt said the other day, Dad, when's the last time Clemson threw the ball over the middle? A deep in or a slant, or it just feels like defenses don't even have to focus on that part of the field. You would hope that this offense will get this group back to let's use the entire field and all these weapons that we have.
At TCU, Garrett Riley didn't use a lot of tight end formations. There was a lot of 4 wide receivers instead. But previously at SMU, Riley did use a lot more what they call 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. That's what we're used to seeing at Clemson. I would imagine with the talent at tight end in the locker room at Clemson, led, of course, by Jake Brenningstool, that we'll see a lot of what we're used to seeing, and also Brenningstool splitting out wide. We saw some of that this year. We certainly saw a lot of that with Jordan Leggett, and I think their talents are very similar. So just to get into what Riley was able to do at SMU in 2021, they were 10th in yards per play, according to sportsreference.com, and in 2020, they were 22nd at 6.6 yards per play. As more news breaks with the Garrett Riley hiring, if there are any more staff changes, doesn't sound like there's going to be, but we'll keep you posted on that as well. Twitter.com/Clemson Kickoff and Instagram.com/Clemson Kickoff. 2 great ways to keep up with us. Well, let's get to the round ball, the one that doesn't have the laces and the pointy ends. It's called a basketball. 72-64 win over Duke, a game that was closely contested most of the evening, and saw the Tigers pull away late to move to 15-3 and still undefeated in ACC play, 7-0.
7-0 in the ACC. If you'd have told somebody at the start of the season that whoever wins this game is going to be 7-0 in the ACC, you wouldn't have thought it would have been Clemson, right? But the Tigers, they get it done. PJ Hall, maybe his best game at Clemson. He played outstanding, and they really needed him to play that well, and especially in the first half. He dominated the first half when everybody else was kind of struggling. Then he got a lot of help in the second half from Brevin Galloway, who stepped up and had a huge run. Bill, they were behind by 5 with about 10 minutes left, and they win the game by 8. That just shows you how they dominated down the stretch and really controlled this game. I think that, as much as anything, says a lot about this particular team, because, I mean, you and I have watched a lot of Clemson basketball through our years. How many times have they been close with Duke or been close with North Carolina and then get about halfway through the second half and those teams just pull away? And it felt like at that point that Duke was about to pull away, and then Clemson responded and really dominated the last 10 minutes of the game. I thought that was a huge step forward for this year's team.
You love to see it, especially in a year that's kind of been, not so quietly considered a make or break year for Coach Brad Brownell. The formula is there, and maybe it's Brownell's past record that is keeping the Tigers unranked. Maybe it's just that the media dislikes Dabo Swinney that dang much. You would think that men's basketball will finally get its overdue AP poll ranking this week, won't they?
I would think so. And look, I mean, they're 15-3. They're 7-0 in the conference. They've beaten Duke. They've beaten other good teams in the conference. And pick another team in the ACC if they were 15-3 and 7-0 in the conference, that they wouldn't be a top 10 team. And yet Clemson hasn't even been ranked yet. So we'll see how that plays out coming up early in the week. But I'll be shocked if they're not ranked. And I would think probably higher than in the 20s. I mean, after what they've done the past couple of weeks, and, beating Pitt on the road in what was considered a big-time road game, and then beating Duke at home, they've earned that to be ranked. And look, they've got a tough game coming up Tuesday night against Wake Forest, but then they've got a run here of a couple of home games, a couple of road games with BC and Florida State that aren't playing as well. I mean, if they can win Tuesday night, this team could really continue on this run here and do some more damage.
I get it. Clemson wasn't expected to be good this year. Maybe a lot of people even expected that Brownell would not survive beyond this season or even make it to the end of this season. Rank the teams where they are at the time, right? A poll isn't supposed to be predictive. A poll isn't supposed to bring in past reputations. Okay, there's some human nature there. It's going to happen now and then and in certain ways. But to have 3 ACC teams ranked this past week and none of them be the ACC leader unbeaten in conference play, just to me was astounding. So hopefully that gets fixed. I think that the guys have earned it. What do you think, Daniel, is the difference on the court? What is Clemson doing better this year that's allowing this to happen?
Well, I think Hunter Tyson has been great. He wasn't good Saturday, but he's been great throughout the season. I thought Brevin Galloway was a huge pickup. I didn't see him having this kind of an impact on the team. And then, but I thought Saturday was the perfect example, Bill, of what's going on, where Chase Hunter did not play well offensively. Hunter Tyson did not play well offensively, but PJ stepped up and Brevin stepped up. And then they got some contributions off the bench. I thought Josh Beadle played well. Ben Middlebrooks played well. Ian Schifflin played well. Even though they didn't play great offensively Saturday, they're 3 for 17 on threes. And that's a huge part of this team's game. But they still got the job done and they competed. They played hard. I thought they played pretty good defense throughout. So there's just something different about this year's team. And I don't know that it is just one thing, Bill. I think it's the depth. It's the competitive spirit. Look, I think the trip to France helped. We've seen that with the Clemson program before when they go on these preseason trips, that seems to help the team. And they've got something special going. And they do have a superstar on their team in PJ Hall. I know Hunter has been kind of the focus of the team, but if PJ's healthy and ready to go, he's your best player, and he's one of the best players in the conference.
And it seems like they are building it gradually. Like this isn't just some sudden splash onto the scene that's going to, one coach is going to find something on tape and implode it. I at least I hope that's the case. They did start the season a little slow. There were some disappointing losses there, but it seems to me they're taking the lessons out of that. They're figuring out what helps them be cohesive. They're getting PJ Hall a little bit healthier every week. They're figuring out how to play together. And like you said, 2 of the leading guys on the team have kind of a down game. Everybody picks them up. Everybody is there to have a better game and absorb that lackluster performance from a couple of guys. That's what you want to see in any sport, right? Someone's having a rough day, somebody else picks them up. And that seems to be what happened against Duke.
It was also great to see Clemson shoot the same number of free throws as Duke did in a game. When's the last time we saw that?
What?
We know Duke always has the free throw advantage. Yeah, huh? It was 18-18. That's a shocker. And Brad Brownell has said they went big. After the loss to Loyola, and that was a bad loss. The South Carolina loss was a bad loss. But they've gone big with their lineup, and they've got Hunter Tyson playing small forward now as opposed to the power forward. Ian Schifflin is starting at power forward. And I think that has really helped this group find its way a little bit. So, look, credit to Brad for finding something to change the trajectory of this season because they were kind of stumbling through the first part of this season. They made that change to the lineup, and it has certainly helped.
A lot of energy around campus. We will keep you posted on all of it. Smash that subscribe button, youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Follow us in your favorite podcast app, and we'll keep you posted on analysis of all the big happenings around Clemson sports. Well, until our next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.